So shall we begin then?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi,
Go ahead.
everyone. Hi. Hi, Bertine. Hi, Veena. Thank you for joining us in this webinar today. As you all know, we are joined by Steve, Correa and Raghu Anantharaman for the second episode of the SaptaSwara Coaching Framework webinar. If there are any questions and you will not be able to type them in the chat box, we welcome all of you to just post your questions or any thoughts in the Q&A box. Again, the chat box is disabled for this particular webinar. Just an announcement that if you have any questions during any point in this webinar, just post them in the Q&A box and we will take them up as we go. Thank you so much. With that, Steve and Raghu, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Yamini, and welcome to all of you who have joined the webinar this evening. This is episode 2. We can't see any of you, but we are assured that you are present with both of us. I'm going to start by doing a little recap. But before I do that, I just wanted to bring reference to a recent article, document, paper I had read titled Coaching is Not a Hobby. This is by Heresy Consulting. And the article was trying to emphasize the seriousness of the professional nature of coaching. And it put down 3 or 4 interesting anchor points. The first is that the coach must be appropriately trained for him to be able to do this work. Training also in deeper areas like trauma, in human understanding, in psychology. That's one. The second aspect that was mentioned in the article was about coaches having real lived experiences of either undergoing coaching themselves or some amount of psychotherapy. A combination of both really allows one to go a little deeper and further. And the third, which is a part of the ICF, which is a continuous development of the coach to continue to hone his commitment and to making certain that he's on top of this ongoing process of continuously deepening his own work. The article went on to talk about supervision, which also would help provide emotional support. And I thought I'll start with that and ask you, Raghu, if you want to add anything to these comments or add any further anchorage for the coach.
Just to repeat what we were saying last time, just to recap, the yogic position is very similar to what you're saying, because the basic idea is that the person to whom you go, if you remember, we asked the question, if I'm in dukkha, what do I do? And the Yoga Sutras are clearly saying, go and approach a person whom they call a Vitaraga Vishya. And we discussed who a Vitaraga Vishya is. Huh? So Vitaraga Vishya is the person who has worked with oneself and does not have any anchors inside themselves of aversions, desires of a certain kind, or fears. Right? If you remember, we discussed this quite a bit. Yeah. And the yogic idea is very clear that the external world will be whatever it is. And our reactions to the world come from the way we are conditioned inside us. And when we are conditioned, one of the things that happens because of conditioning is we don't flow with life as it unfolds. We're constantly at loggerheads with it. We want life to be in the way we want it to be. We don't want any dukkha to be repeated. Now, dukkha to be repeated means we want certain things that we desire to keep on getting repeated. And there should be a guarantee that it will get repeated. Those things that we fear, there must be a guarantee that they will not get repeated. Our aversions must be kept away, and so on. And this happens at a very deep level. We're not always aware of it. But the way it shows up in us is we respond to situations which create dukkha, either by evoking a feeling of victimhood inside, or getting caught with fight, or getting caught with judgment, or getting caught with flight, and so on. Yeah. So when a person who's coming to me for coaching is approaching me or you as a coach, obviously they're coming from some level of dukkha. And it's very important for us as coaches to not be reactive to or get pulled into the conditioned world, either of ours or of the coach. So this is, in a sense, a precondition. So it's entirely convergent.
Yeah. For the benefit of viewers who might have missed episode 1, I'll just quickly recap. I started off by saying that parallel to, complementary to, adjacent to the ICF competencies that all of you have learned through your PCC and MCC and so on, that is various demonstration of behaviors from starting from rapport, contract to confidentiality and so on and so forth, and across in a chronological order, a movement that the coach progresses with the coachee. And I had said that the yogic coach is not a parallel process to what you are currently studying or have studied. In fact, it is the y-axis on the ICF x-axis. Because the y-axis is really the deepening of the coach with respect to his ability to be able to meet the coachee where the coachee is. Now, this is a very important comment. To meet the coachee or the client where the coachee is. What do I mean by that? For which I had started with a short narrative of a person who was supposed to give feedback to someone who had not been very successful. And this coach was gathering all kinds of data, analytics, evidence to be able to substantiate his feedbacking into the client. And so he was holding some amount of anxiety for that process that was to happen. So when he came back to the wash-up call, he said it all went well. We had a conversation. The guy seems to have taken it quite well. And that for me seemed a little off because I felt that they had both engaged on the topic at a transactional level and hadn't gone deeper. It was then we started to work with the question that you can only meet the other to the extent you can meet yourself. So if you are at A, B, C, you can meet the client at A, B, and C. And we are talking about a process that goes all the way down. And to clarify that, let me invite Raghu to talk about what does it mean to go down and meet the client where the client is.
Yeah, all the way down means all the way down to a state of Shantam. Yeah, a deep quietude inside where I'm not in any way anticipating anything, right? And the analogy that is given in the Yoga Sutras and It's a beautiful analogy. It's the analogy of a instrument, a veena or a sitar, that is perfectly tuned. And the moment this is perfectly tuned, then I allow you as the coach to take the lead and play whatever tune has to be played. And if I stay perfectly tuned without any bias from my side, saying this is the tune that ought to be played, so on and so forth, I will let you lead the game and I will resonate with you. Right now, this is extremely important because it is in this resonance that I not only am with you, I get a sense of what is the inner drama that you're going through. Without that resonance, I don't know what inner drama you're going through. I can only make judgments from the outside. And then you begin acting upon rather than enabling something to happen from within the coaching. Yeah, so this is the process. If you remember last time, we called it the Maitri. How do I really resonate with you? And there are, it's very interesting that one of the first practices in Yoga Sutra is called Maitri. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha, which comes in the Buddhist Brahma Vihara also as a very, very critical practice of how am I responding to other people? Am I responding from appropriate levels of friendliness, appropriate levels of karuna, appropriate levels of joy? And at times I might have to be quiet and not get carried away by it. So that is upeksha.
So let's take a scenario where at the initial inner world, there is the karta, the actor, who's caught with, who loses his courage and ends up becoming a victim. Then around him are voices of the guardian, who's very angry and is always vigilant and protective. Or that of the judge, who's forever saying, do this, don't do this, I told you, do this, don't do this. Or the beginner, who takes him round the mulberry bush, as it were. And if the coach himself is not aware of his own karta, his own actor, and is enmeshed in his own beckoner, guardian, and judge, what possibly would happen?
We both go in a vicious cycle, right? I will either see if you speak from your victim voice and I can't listen to it, I get afraid of the fear. I will protect myself in some way, in my habitual ways. So it's very important, whichever of the, what is generally called emotions, but we would look at something even deeper than emotion, which is rasa. Yeah, whichever rasa you are representing, it's important for me to stay with it and not run away from it. It can be any of the 8 rasas. Yeah, the 9th, what I was calling Shantam. Now, unless I can be in Shantam, my veena or my sitar is not fully tuned. When I'm in Shantam, it's fully tuned. So if you speak from fear, I can listen to it, respond in a sense, resonate with your fear without becoming afraid. Yeah, this is very clearly mentioned in Yoga Sutra. How do I feel heat without reacting to the heat? How do I feel cold without reacting to cold, and so on? So it's called, the sutra says Dvandva Anabhighatam. Dvandva means opposites. don't impact me, don't hurt me. But I'm aware of them. I'm not running away from them. So what does it do to you? If I listen to you and you're speaking from something that is a hurt or something, if I'm listening to you from Shantam, I enable you also to look at it from Shantam. I evoke that capability in you for you to look at yourself from Shantam.
Hmm.
It's something like this, na, that there is a field that gets created between you and me. Yeah, while field is an English word, in the yogic thing, it would be called a pranic exchange. There's a pranic flow. Yeah. Now, once
Hmm.
there's a pranic flow, I will evoke you with my deepest potential and therefore your deepest potential. Now, I'm saying this, I and you, because in a coaching situation, the coachee comes from an asymmetrical position. The coachee is giving you a certain position already. So I or you as a coach have the responsibility to create that deeper anchorage. And then the quality of the pranic flow between us will take on a healing potential.
Okay, let's make this a little alive for the viewers. So for instance, suppose there is a client who's finds herself in the midst of a battlefield in the
Yeah.
organization, for instance, and
Yeah.
is a warrior. And at this point of time, she is probably feeling she's losing the battle, losing ground. And here is the coach who, for years, has been working with his own wounded warrior, if you like.
Yes.
And here are two wounded warriors, engaging with each other. Um, and there could also be situations where when someone is having a weaker moment, one is concerned about the other person, let's say, maybe crying or going deeper, and therefore you uh, pass on tissue papers, pass on glasses of water. So is that a scenario of getting caught with
No,
the other?
let's look at the first one. Let's not look at two things. Let's look at the first one. Yeah. So, I'm having a conversation with you. Yeah, we're actually going into the second of the SaptaSwara here, Steve. Yeah, the first one is like, for example, you're speaking, you're a wounded warrior. I have to be able to listen to that to even know that you're speaking from this part that is wounded. Because you're not going to come and announce it to me. If you can, why would you come to me as a coach? You have enough clarity in you to say who you are. So you will be describing what is happening to you. I have to listen to you very, very carefully to know where your identity is coming from at this point of time. Yeah. Where is it that you're responding to the world from? Right. And when I do that, and this part of me is touched, yeah, there are two possibilities. One, I will ask you to do what I have done with myself. Right? So if I'm the kind of guy who the moment the wound is triggered, I go hammer and tongs, I'll say, come on, why don't you fight? And, I may not say that because I'm a coach and I have to say certain words, but underlying tone will be, come on, man, get up, fight. Right? And that may not be what the person needs at that time. Maybe that person at that point of time needs replenishment. And I think that replenishment is a waste of time. So that is what I will communicate. However, if I can listen to you from quietness, I will recognize that, yes, this wounded part of me is where the resonance is coming. And then I'll be able to sit back and look at the many possible ways of dealing with this. Right? One possible way could be to evoke my own ability to search for resources that I have not looked for so far. Yeah, to do that, I have to move from the emotion to the rasa. Now, this is described in dance beautifully. Yeah, that is why in a dance stage, they will depict all kinds of things. Yeah, they'll depict cruel events, all kinds of joyous events, and so on. But they represent all of this from a certain rasa. So when I'm listening to it, if it's a really well done performance, I'll be evoked with a sense of beauty. I'll be evoked with a sense of inner completion. I will not come away saying, ah, how horrible. That is a very critical ability. And that is what in our framework I'm calling karma, which means, do I know where your action is coming from? Do I know what is the rasa that is triggering you? Yeah, while you will be in touch with the action, with the emotion, with the reaction, I have to be able to listen to you from the rasanubhava.
Very nice.
Yeah,
So, as we know that he who watches this uh, Natya Shastra, the dance, is a Rasika who
is
is
that
seeing all the emotions, and he is with the phenomena, but yet
yeah,
he's also not a phenomena. He's salivating and enjoying all of it, but he also knows that it is there outside, and he is a Rasika.
yeah,
And you had said karma was the second SaptaSwara. So
yeah.
before we get to evocations and resonances and being with the other, what is the first stage of Maitreya?
The first stage of Maitri is what we discussed before, na? Just the
Yes.
pure resonance and being with you wherever you are. The second is the ability to be cognizant at the level of rasa, because that is where action arises from. Yeah, in Indic thought, it's very clear that action doesn't arise from thinking. Thinking is the last thing that happens to you. The first thing that happens is a very deep response, visceral response, which is at the level of rasa. Most of us are not cognizant of this. We're only cognizant of emotions. Emotions is a much more, in a sense, gross, more violent form of the rasa.
Right.
Now, if
So,
I experience the rasa and I'm able to be there with the rasa, not just be with you and say, oh, how resonant I am, but also be able to be cognizant of this, then some action possibilities can start.
very good. So, what we would like our viewers to note is that when someone is engaging with one's external outward drama, there's actually an inner drama that's happening within. And the
Absolutely.
first step for the coach is to offer presence and maitreya to the other. Would that be a fair way of
First,
stating it?
yes, yes. And
Oh,
then when I am doing this, when I'm resonant and there is Maitri between us, Maitri Bhava between us, which means I'm coming from a place of affection and you can experience this affection that I feel for you. Yeah, which means you trust me and you'll then be able to share more honestly. Right. So if we go back to this wounded warrior, right, initially they'll be talking to you about how they are fighting and how they wish to fight. But if you are picking them up properly, maybe what they're saying is, hey, I'm so tired, I'm so fatigued with this. Can you just be with me at this moment? Don't tell me to go back and fight. Don't tell me to do anything. Just be with me in this fatigue. So I am being with you, and from the victim part of me, the other part, the victim is the healer. When I'm in touch with the rasa of your fear and your hurt, and I don't get pulled into your fear and hurt, what gets evoked in me is a heroic form, with a healing form.
So essentially, the coach is saying, he's not saying it, but what's happening is I see you, I hear you, I'm in touch with you in the Maitri stage.
Yeah, that's what you're saying at that time. You're demonstrating it. You're not saying, yeah.
And there is that other notion of the trikona, is to see the coach seeing himself as the actor, the coach seeing himself as his own Maitreya, the coach seeing himself as a witness to both his Maitreya and his Karta. Could you expand on that?
See, when I'm in touch with my silence now, what is evoked in me is my meditative quality. When I'm looking at you with compassion, what is evoked in me is what we call the Sakhi. Yeah, and in dance and everything, the Sakshi and the Sakhi are very, very critical in helping the protagonist, the Nayika or the Nayakan, to discover what they're looking for. Yeah, in most of the dance things, there is Radha looking for Krishna. Without the Sakhi, she doesn't know, she gets confused. The Sakhi has been on this trip before. The Sakhi is always represented as somebody who can be with Radha and go and also be with Krishna. That's why she can take messages back and forth. Yeah, this is exactly what you started with. The Sakhi has lived through some of this. So the Sakhi knows the other end, the other side of the Yamuna. Yeah. Radha is still sitting on this side. So she tells her the way. She tells how you go across and meet Krishna. And it can only be done with compassion. It cannot be done by challenging and saying, come on, do this. So giving you a couple of techniques and so on. Because there is an inner transformation that has to occur.
Hearing you, it seems that the coach needs to be evoked rather than be thinking about what's the next most powerful question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I, as a coach in yogic coaching, start with the belief that there are immense resources in you, and I have to help you to unfold those resources. The seeds of the healing, the seeds of heroism are in you. You've forgotten it. So I have to listen not only to your present condition, which in a sense is lamenting because you've lost this, but also be able to sense what it is and help you, remind you, these are your strengths. This is exactly what happens in the dance. Yeah, the Sakhi is constantly telling Radha, hey, this is who you are. You're not this envious person. Why are you getting caught saying Krishna is going to somebody else? Who are you? Where is the Krishna inside you? Every time this reminder happens, which means she's not finding fault with Radha for where she is. She says, I understand it. I understand where you are, but hey, this is who you really are. Remember that. Why are you letting that go?
So when the musician is with the instrument and the music plays, when two dancers meet, just the dance remains. The objects melt, and what is created is a flow. In that flow, does responses evoke themselves, or does one have to thoughtfully guide?
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. See, you've been evoked into poetry right now, Steve. That's great.
So do you believe that the responses that come in that moment when two are in Jugalbandi, the responses are then direct, clear?
It'll always be Dharmic. That's the third step of the SaptaSwara. When I'm in touch with my compassion, when I'm in touch with the meditator inside me, the actions that emerge will always be actions that are enlivening for me, enlivening for you, enlivening for the context, and so on. But if you're dealing with this whole process in a way that says, how do I become a better instrument for myself? How do I become a better instrument of my own success? Then you'll be eating off yourself. You'll actually be creating more stress for yourself than an unfolding.
So you walked into the third SaptaSwara, which is Dharmic, and you've said that Dharmic is all action that simultaneously serves self, self serves others, serves context, serves the planet. And it has to be simultaneous. And yes, there are times, not all the time, when the coach is perhaps serving something of interest that may not be serving all of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that could actually lead to our dharmic actions then, right?
Yeah, that's the whole Mahabharata, no? Yeah, Drona is supposed to be a great coach and a teacher, but he is on the side of the Kauravas. I don't know why India is giving a Drona award now. Because that guy had an agenda. He was trying to use Arjuna for his agenda.
A good example.
Yeah. It's very, very clear.
Yeah. But today, if I may say so, Raghu, and we all know that much of the polycrisis we find ourselves in is because there's a dominant narrative which wants one party or two parties to extract the juice of the rest.
Yeah.
Even in the coaching world, one has to, serve organization, serve client, serve context. So there is always some element that needs to be also kept in mind, right?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want
That's
to say
your
anything
choice.
about?
That's the price you pay. See, it's a very simple thing, Steve. If I've done this with many managers now, you ask them to draw. Like I remember very clearly working with a person who's, in the sugar industry. Yeah, we just did a very simple exercise. We asked the leadership group, to just draw what do you think is the importance of your organization? Where is it placed? What is it? And people drew a few things and the usual stuff, shareholder, something, yeah, this usual stuff. So some people were part of the farming community. Yeah, their cousins, they also owned land, so they were also in the sugar thing. So they said it also impacts my family and so on. So as we started putting these pieces together, what came through was the entire economy of that district depended on the success or failure of this one factory. Yeah, your schools ran because the children there needed, yeah, they need to study. They need their parents to do well. Their parents are farmers. If the sugar that they are making is not sold at a good price, where do they get the money from? Yeah, the local shop, what they call the potikade, no? To everything in that whole district depends on the success and how well this factory is run. When the GM got this picture in his mind, he came back the next day weeping. He said, look, I never realized how important my work is. Till now, I thought I just had to control the factory. And he had learned from the British. So it is a clearly extractive thing he had learned. The next day he came back to work with a beautiful Tamil poem.
Wow.
When he realized what is the deep interdependence between me and my world.
Hmm.
Yeah, nobody succeeds in anywhere, Steve, without collective effort. And sooner or later, if you're extractive, you'll get found out. I have not seen in any organization extractive CEOs being able to make it. See what happened in Microsoft, no? When Nadella came in, he came in with such a strong, compassionate attitude. He
Absolutely.
turned around the company.
Absolutely.
Initially, there were all kinds of comments, no? Oh, with this kind of attitude, how is he ever going to do this, do that, and so on. But he ended up really pulling the whole team together when they were losing heart. I've seen this over and over again.
Super. Is it, you must have been challenged to respond to the question, can people today in this world simultaneously be materialistic and spiritual?
These binaries, I don't understand, Steve. Honestly, I don't understand. Because we have to, at this point of time, when there is a crisis going on in the universe, in the world, we have to ask serious questions about how we are using resources. Nowhere in the yogic thing is there a materialism versus spiritualism. This is a completely Western import. There's a history behind it in the West. There's no need for us to import this at all.
Quite so. It is in our Indic wisdom that we say that the world is one family and let everyone be happy.
Yeah. And so long as I know how I've got my wealth, honest wealth, and I give it away honestly, I will grow. I mean, look at Arvind. Arvind Eye Clinic is a phenomenal example of somebody who just starts with conviction of helping people with eye problems. And it's grown into a global organization. It's a model organization. And it's not the only one. Yeah? The Tata started with this. Yeah, some of the greatest Indian organizations have all started with the key people there having a very strong intent of service to the nation, service to people.
Yeah. Yeah, and seva is quite different in tonality to, let's say, outcomes and tasks and the tyranny of tasks
Yeah,
and outcomes. That
yeah.
whole combo feels different in responding to both. I know that from my own corporate background. So we've traversed through Maitreya, which is
My,
really to build Maitri.
Maitri.
Sorry. I got to the Buddhist version.
You got straight to the Buddha.
We went to Maitri, which is the first, which is really in ICF terminology, what is called rapport and contract and building intimacy. We've gone to evocation and resonances, which in some way in ICF is to tap into from the surface level to the emotional substratum and to stay with the emotive content and work at that level, which is what happens there. And we've gone to the third, which is to be mindful, which in ICF is called ethics and confidentiality and many other aspects of ethics and conduct, which we are talking about the dharmic way of living self, others, context, planet. Let's now go into the fourth one, Jnana, before we
No,
go around.
just one small thing here. We're talking about all this in the context of the coach really being able to look at oneself and work with oneself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we are saying that unless the coach is deepened within himself and can encounter himself, the level of the encounter that he has within himself allows him the latitude to encounter the other.
Yeah. See, there's a beautiful story, a Zen story about this. And it's one of my favorite stories in this context. It's about somebody who is carrying a cup of coffee in their hand. This guy's got a clean white shirt, and he's bought this coffee, one of these takeaway coffees or whatever. And he goes around, he bumps into somebody, and obviously the coffee will spill. So he gets very angry with this guy. He says, "Look at my white shirt, it's become dirty because of you," and so on, right? And there's a Zen master standing beside him. The Zen master says that whatever spills on your shirt depends on what you're carrying in your cup.
Beautiful.
And a coaching encounter is bumping into you. I have to encounter you. When I encounter you, whatever is in my cup will spill.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That triggers in me another story of a monk. There were 3, 4 monks were walking and they had to pass a river bank, and there was a lady who was at one side, and he carries her and takes her across to the other bank, and then he puts her down and continues walking with the other monks. A few kilometers later, one of the younger monks turns to the elder guy and says, "What were you doing back there?" He says, I dropped her there. You're still carrying her around right now.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the practice. How do you just act appropriately at that point with compassion, so on and so forth? Exactly. This is a beautiful example. So
And that's
where
the example of coming
Maitri,
from, sorry.
no, if the other monk had tried to carry that woman, he'd have had a sense of desire or whatever, right, towards that woman, and it would be in a tainted relationship. This person, she needed help, he gave help. That's it, over.
Yeah. So to be a true Rasika, one comes to the phenomena, acts in the phenomena, then drops the phenomena and continues to another Rasika, to another Rasa.
No, I have to come back to zero. I have to come back to Shantam, and then I'm ready for the next.
Without any traces or fingerprints.
Without any traces of the last one. Without any traces of my own traumas that I have experienced in my life so far. Without recent happenings, none of that.
So if this
That's why
prana,
the inner work. See,
yeah.
Steve, that's why the inner work. So it's not a technique. See, I have to cleanse my cup. My cup has to have clean water. It has to have healing water.
So if this prana within is flowing freely, resting in and resting out of Shantam, but when that prana gets locked, Dukha emerges.
Exactly.
Will you elaborate on that?
That's it. See, every time, like this example that you gave, of the 2 monks, what happened? The first monk just responded to the lady in distress. Yeah. The second monk did not respond to the lady in distress. He responded to the lady from desire, with desire already in his mind. And he complicated his life by saying, I'm a Zen monk, I shouldn't do this, I should do that, and so on and so forth. So what am I doing as the second monk? I'm distorting myself, with 3 or 4 contradictory pulls and pushes and so on. And the hooks of all of them are inside me. Idealism hook is inside me, thinking I'm going to go to heaven or reach something fantastic by doing the Zen thing. So I'm, in a sense, greedy for what the Zen will give me. the same mind is looking at this woman in a certain way, and this other guy just picks her up. Maybe I'm feeling envious of this whole thing and hoping this guy will trip up in the middle of the river or something like this. Nothing happens. He walks beautifully. He drops her on the other side and keeps walking.
So bringing it back to client situation, they come with some kind of, in italics, dukkha.
Of course they will.
I was just thinking about how you explained dukkha to me as that wheel that's a little off the spindle, and the whole attempt is to come back to even flow. Could you explain that from the root word of dukkha?
See, yeah, the word dukkha itself, has 2 or 3 root meanings, right? And we were talking about this the other day. One of the analogies that's used constantly in most of what yoga talks about is the analogy of the chariot. It comes in the Bhagavad Gita also, this chariot. Now, if a chariot has to run properly, not only has it to be made of robust thing, which means I have to look after my body well and so on and so forth, my wheels have to be perfectly aligned. Right? My wheels are not perfectly aligned and the hub of the wheel is not placed properly. What happens? One wheel is like this, the other wheel is like this. So how will this chariot run evenly? Right? And what is very interesting is the way this whole thing is described. It's first described in one of the Upanishads. It says that the wheels will start making noise. It'll be very squeaky because they're out of sync. Right? And to me, this is a beautiful example of what happens in dukkha, right? Inside you, something is screaming. And you're all wobbly in life. Yeah. So it is. Dukkha is all of that.
I'm going to take a big leap forward and say that in Antaranga Yoga, the prana which is flowing is actually getting constrained and not able to go through the other minds. Is that?
Of course. So
Could you share
anytime I
what the
feel
other minds are?
constrained, yeah. So if I create constraints in the flow of prana, I will experience the constraint, no? That is dukkha. The problem is we try to solve the dukkha by looking outward. We think that gaining more power, more money, following X or following Y, whatever, will end my dukkha. And then we keep looking outward. We keep looking outward. It's actually this inner thing that needs to be worked with. That's the shift we're talking about in SaptaSwara.
Very good.
That I cannot increase my coaching skill if the cup I'm holding is full of coffee.
Yeah, and we've got a cup full
Cleanse
for
coffee. We have to cleanse this inside thing.
we're in a cup full.
Time to ask questions, Steve.
Exactly. So we're going to now go to questions because our cup is full on this. So
Yeah.
Yamini, would you like to share some of the questions that's come through?
Yeah, sure, Steve. So there was one question by Julia, who has asked you, I have become aware of a rus that I do not want to give up. So far, all I have done is quote unquote own that. I don't want to give it up. What other steps can I take?
See, if I'm really in touch with the rasa, I will not be in the grips of that. What I'll be in the grips of is emotions and consequences. So I'll have to, it'll be good if I can speak to that person, in any way we can have a conversation with the person who's asking a question. Otherwise, the question I don't know where it's coming from. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Dens, I think you can promote Julia as a panelist.
Yes, Raghu, if Julia is ready, I'll promote her as a panelist.
Yeah, anybody who's asking a question, Yamini and this thing, you can just get them to come. Otherwise, it's very disconcerting.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
So participants, I'll open the chat box. You all can please chat in the chat box and let Raghu and Steve know your questions.
No, not
Oh.
chat box. Yeah, I want to
On
see.
box, yeah.
I want to see the person.
Can we see Julia, for instance? Can you invite her to the?
Yes, yes. If she is willing to.
Just check with her. Yeah.
Madhumita also has raised her hand.
Raghu, I have a hard stop at 8:40.
Ah,
That's Julia. Hi, Julia.
Hello.
yeah. That's why I wanted to make sure who
Oh,
is Julia.
Hi, Julia.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yes, Julia.
Yes, so I've discovered that I've been letting go of deep emotions and rasas. However, this morning I encountered one that was very sticky, and I was in my yoga and it didn't want to leave me, and I realized I wasn't ready to give it up.
Yeah, perfect. So I have to then step back, Julia, and ask, where is this coming from? No?
Yeah.
What is it protecting? Because when we hold on to something, there's both a payout and a payoff.
Mm.
And I have to honestly look at that. And when I look at that, the more subtle reality will come through and I'll be able to let go.
Mhm.
I can't fight with it though. I can be aware of it, own it up like you're saying. And if it doesn't go, we don't fight with it. We just say, maybe I'm not ready right now to let it go. Maybe it's going to serve some purpose for me. And
Yeah.
I have to trust my intelligence to say, yeah, maybe there's some reason why I'm holding on to this. And leave it. It's okay. You can carry the nun for a little while the other guy is free of it. That's okay.
Got it. I'll just hang with it until it's ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Watch it, you wait, and it'll go. This is also talked about in the Upanishads and in the Yoga Sutras, Julia. It says that when a fruit is really ripe, it'll fall off the tree.
Hmm.
If it's not ripe, when you try to pull it out, you will leave behind a hurt, both in the tree and in the fruit.
Got it. That
And
makes
the fruit-
sense.
Yeah, and the fruits that you pull out like this in our tradition become toxic. So
Ah,
they react. They're not good for eating.
right, right. And it feels right that this is kind of stuck on the vine still.
Yeah. So let it be, let it ripen and let it fall. Every time you look at it honestly, it'll ripen.
So that brings me then, the coach is always a work in progress.
Always, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate this very much.
Sure, Julia. We've got 4 or 5 minutes. I'm wondering if there's one more question that we can respond to.
Steve, we have Madhumita who has raised her hand. I'll
Sure.
allow her to talk. Madhumita, over to you.
Uh, Hi, Raghu. Thank you so much. And thank you, Steve, as well. This was quite amazing and it resonates so deeply with me. I cannot even express how deeply. Because I am a regular yoga practitioner and I try to bring that into my coaching so I could hear essence of everything. My question to you, Raghu, is a bit specific and pointed. Hopefully, that will be very useful for you also to respond to. Because I'm purposely making it specific. So I have a live client right now who I'm coaching. It's my first organizational coaching experience, and He came to me talking about several things about his organization, about how he wants me to coach his team, etc. But eventually, he's come around to being coached himself, which is what I had proposed. So we have just done one session. In the second session, I want to go to the Rasa. The Rasa thing that you mentioned, that one I want to go, because Maitri has been done. um, so what I'm faced with is this guy, his organization and his vision, as he's articulated, is entirely driven by his need to be a role model, his need for respect, his need to impress people. So far I haven't got into that sugar industry kind of, like you mentioned, the sugar industry, how it impacts a whole lot of people. I haven't managed to identify. In our conversation, we've had this one session, we haven't managed to identify what is that which is beyond him, that he wants, that he will feel fulfilled with if his organization serves. So what would you suggest based on this?
See, the first thing I would do, Madhumita, I wouldn't go into the second session saying this is what I want to do.
Mm,
I would listen to this person.
mm,
Yeah. And see, generally in my experience, no, I'm now have to speculate. Yeah.
mm.
People who have strong needs for respect and so on and so forth,
Mm,
quite often are living up to some other role models that they are wishing for respect from.
mm,
Yeah, like for example,
mm,
I remember coaching a manager who was very smart and everything, but
mm,
he was desperate for affirmation from his father,
mm,
who was a very successful person, so on and so forth, very respected.
mm,
So everything that he did in the organization,
mm,
he would either go and talk to his father, who knew nothing about the context, and come back and do something, or in his
mm,
mind, he would say, what will my father do?
mm,
Right. Now, these kind of things is what Steve was referring to. Here is a person then whose judge is working overtime. The inner judge
mm,
is working overtime, and anything that this person does is being compared to somebody else.
mm,
Right.
mm,
So,
mm.
I would wait, talk to this person and see what is the most beautiful I think I can be.
What's the most beautiful?
I can be. Do I know that? And am I
As in,
compromising my own capabilities, my own talents, looking for something that I'm not?
okay.
And and if that person wants to make that a kind of an ideal, I won't immediately say don't do it, because
Mm,
yeah.
mm,
So I have to help that person step by step to see what is.
mm,
So I would say, okay, this person has a heroic impulse.
mm,
How can that become a dharmic heroic impulse, not necessarily a personal heroic impulse?
mm.
That might be an accessible step for this person.
Mm.
Can we leave you there, Madhumita?
Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate.
Just conscious of time, I want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say a few things. One is that there are a series of articles that Raghu and I have written, which is there in Medium, and which in any case we post on both our LinkedIns. And it has all of the SaptaSwaras detailed, including the question that you asked, Madhumita, on the Mano Mandala, which is really how do you interface with clients and so on and so forth. And we're going deeper again into exploring that. So please do read up all of the past articles. And if you missed out on the previous episode 1, please do catch up with that. And at this point of time, I want to now, if you have any last comment to make, Raghu, pass it on to Yamini, who has a few organizational tasks at hand. Yamini, over to you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you so much, Raghu, for answering all the questions and such a beautiful exploration of the SaptaSwara coaching framework. We look
We have
forward
four
to
more left, Yamini.
Sorry?
We've covered three this
And
time.
three.
We have four more left
Yes,
for all the
and
people here to listen to us.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We would be back with the third episode very soon. The details will be up on our website, and we will make sure the Coacharya team will make sure to let everybody know. Now for the announcement bit is that we have a 25% discount going on the mega ACTC program, which will have 6 trainers. These are the 6 trainers that you can see on your screen. This discount is specifically for Coacharya alumni and current trainers. So if you come in pods of 4, you can reach out to the people in the community or people in your current cohorts and ask them if they want to join the program with you. All 4 people will get a 25% discount. All you have to do is reach out to support@coacharya.com and tell us that you are joining in a group. So that is that. And the other program that we have coming up is the coaching supervision program, where Ram will show you how to supervise coaches, and that can be a pathway to you becoming a coach supervisor. We also have a couple of webinars coming up. All the details are up on our website, where you can see all the webinars that are coming up. And if you need any help, if you have any questions, or you want a consultation about which program you should choose, you can definitely reach out to us at support@coacharya.com, or you can also directly reach out to me at yamini@coacharya.com. With that, thank you so much, everybody, for joining this webinar today. We will see you next week. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Raghu. Thanks, gents.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.